Welcome to this episode of the podcast with Bold Conscious Connections. I'm Raju Panjwani, and today I'm delighted to have here in my studio Eunicia Peret. We met a few years ago as part of a mastermind. Welcome, Eunicia.
Raju, it's such a pleasure to finally be together again after so many years. I'm so excited.
Yes, likewise. So, I'm going to introduce you briefly, but I would like you to tell people in your own words, who you are. I know you're the CEO of Excelstra, and you're an award-winning financial strategist, a consultant who's helped many, many Fortune 500 companies when you were in corporate life. So you're a corporate employee turned entrepreneur like me. And
yes.
So, you help solopreneurs, consultants, people with 6-7-figure businesses to keep more of what they earn, whether it's through taxes or other advice, growing their finances faster and prepare them optimally for their future. So I'm going to put a bunch of these notes, in the show notes, but I actually usually start my guests by asking them to tell me who they are rather than what they do.
I am someone that cares passionately and deeply about making a change in our clients' lives. And the reason that I'm so passionate about that is because when I realized the lack of support that my husband and I had when it came to our financial picture, it made me sad. It made me sick to my stomach. And what I realized was that unfortunately, the financial services industry is not and was not built for us as consumers. It was built for the banks and for the corporations that are helping quote unquote clients. And when we saw that lack of value that we had received over years and that lack of support, I had two choices. I had the choice of wallowing in our sorrows and thinking of what could have, should have, would have, versus saying, you know what, we have to make a shift. If these are problems that we had, let's figure out, were we unique or are there other people that are experiencing the same situations that we had experienced? And so that's who I am. I'm all about making a shift and helping more people avoid the same mistakes that unfortunately we fell trapped to just because we didn't know.
So you kind of describing what was my next question. Is like, what led you to do what you do today? We always are, our mess becomes our message, as and then, in our business, as you travel through life, there are so many stories that happen to you, the turning points, the traumas, whatever it may be. So what was it specifically for you and your husband or otherwise that led you to do what you're doing today?
As we know, financial services is not exactly a place that endorses, for example, alternative investments or truly embraces individuals saying, hey, it's great, I've got the funds, the setup of whatever those may look like, and we won't put them in any particular category, traditional, non-traditional financial products. And when it comes to the truly non-traditional, meaning nothing that sits within the financial services industry, but there are still ways to invest, whether it be in businesses, whether it be in real estate, whether it be in different ways to still grow money, but in ways that are meaningful to us as human beings. When I realized that it was those desires that my husband and I had that were totally overlooked by the same people that were supposed to supposedly help us with our financial strategy, but none of it was there. As a matter of fact, we were almost turned away because we enjoyed those things, real estate as an example, right? What I realized was that we needed to do something to where individuals felt like for a change, they weren't shown away, or the conversation wasn't, oh, real estate is great because of XYZ, but let me tell you all the reasons why you should invest in real estate this other way. Don't own hard assets, guys. Just own these other funds or own these REITs, or let's put your money elsewhere because that's how those individuals get paid. When I realized how powerful that was, I figured out that we had to make a shift. And to be honest with you, Raju, for a long time, I honestly thought that I had truly left my consulting experience behind until we discovered that individuals had some major problems, especially when it comes to taxation. Successful business owners have this problem. And when we realized that it wasn't just about the blind spots, it wasn't just about the pitfalls that we needed to overcome, it was now about bigger problems, like I said, taxation. That's exactly what brought me right back to my several and so many years in strategy consulting, really with the focus on how can we take those problems and figure out what are the solutions. Let's not talk about the problems anymore, but rather focus on the solutions and the opportunities that as individuals, as business owners, we have to change the paradigm and to make that shift.
Wow. So, it's I want to like take it back a little bit, because people listening to this, most of them could be, or most of them are in my audience or ideal clients, who are corporate employees, successful people, have decided they're going to become entrepreneurs. So they're, sometimes all these things are not considerations necessarily, because they know they want to become an entrepreneur. They just don't know how. So, people like me help them. But what can they focus on right now, listening to this conversation or watching it? I mean, you talk a lot about personalized financial guidance, and I've seen some of the work you do. Can you share some insight on, how individuals can realistically move forward for true financial freedom and, if you will, freedom, time freedom, etc., that they all look for? So
I so love the fact that you're asking that question. Go ahead, finish your thought.
no, so that's the question. So shed some light on, what does it mean, personalized financial guidance? Because the financial product markets and the banks have their own products to sell, so they'll figure out a way to sell you that, because they're not solving your problem specifically. As you said, you experienced that yourself firsthand, and your husband did. So what can these people that are listening can walk away with and say, okay, if I'm an entrepreneur now, not just getting a W-2, but as I move towards my time and financial freedom, what can Eunicia tell me that would help me to consider that?
Here's what I'll say. I'll break it down into two components. Number one, I wish that I would have had a Raju before I left corporate America, but I didn't. And I kind of jumped out of the plane, frankly, without a parachute. Thank God. My husband was my biggest supporter. If we're talking, as you're listening to this, if you fall in the category of you want to leave corporate America, please understand that it's so much easier when you do have individuals like Raju on your side to help you, because once you've left and you're gone, you have two options. You stick with it because it will get tough, or you go right back. And if you go right back, you're just going to go back to the same misery, and it's never going to be the same. And your mindset is going to be shifted, and you're just going to be miserable. So make sure that you have the right support on your side from the get-go. If you have not yet left corporate America, you still are dealing with the same situation where you have to have the right support, because I guarantee you there will be nights when you're going to lose sleep. Even though financially you might be set, there are going to be nights when you're going to lose sleep over the fear of the unknown. You may have never been a business owner or an entrepreneur. I wasn't one. And I didn't know, frankly, if I even knew how to pay myself. What did that mean? What does it mean, pay yourself? By the way, you're doing some of the same, maybe not the same work, but you're still applying those same skill sets, and you will learn how to pay yourself. You will learn how to become a business owner, an entrepreneur, but you need the support. The support is, again, it's your rock solid foundation. And if you don't have that, your journey is going to be so much harder. That's number one. That's more on the operational side of making this thing work. On the other side, a big consideration is the financial picture. And Raju, you said personalized financial guidance. I would take it a step beyond that to say personalized approach to figuring out, what does our financial platform, what does it look like today? And where do you want to see it in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? And if you're either considering making that jump or you've already made it, chances are the financial consideration is still in the back of your mind. And here's what I'll tell you. I have seen way too many people that dwindled down and depleted everything as part of that transition, and then they started at zero. And when you start at zero because you do not have a true plan, and I'm not talking about somebody printed out a beautiful presentation as to what they recommended that you do with your money, but truly having a plan for how is the money that you either have or are you going to be bringing in not going to deplete and put you back at zero. Without that plan, your life as a business owner and entrepreneur will be much harder. So part of what we do when we work with individuals that are still in corporate America or that are thinking about it is putting together that game plan. Frankly, if you're already working with Raju or you already have somebody that's helping you with that thought leadership on how are you going to operationalize your move, the financial component needs to be coming into play. And just like we're telling our clients, it's very important for your broader financial team to be on the same page. If you already have somebody on the financial side and you need support with that broader strategy, that's where your entire transition team, I would argue, comes into play. Because if, for example, I'll use Raju, you as an example again, right? If you're working with our listeners or you're working with individuals that are in the audience on their operationalizing their move, that vulnerability is going to come out. And it's better for it to come out in a safe environment where you know that you've got a buffer to catch you, rather than it's you yourself and you on an island. That becomes very sad and very lonely very quickly.
So well said, because I'm one of those guys that went to zero after 3 or 4 of my startups going bust. So like, and how can I be coaching them? So I first of all appreciate the plug for me, but I really think that if there was someone like you around that I had spoken with, then maybe I would have, put my ducks in better order than I did. I mean, leave aside the fact that life had its own, travails to come, but life does throw curveballs at you, some extreme ones, and you just kind of roll with it.
Absolutely. Somebody asked me yesterday on an interview, they said, what do you wish you had when you left corporate America? And my answer was very much the same. I wish I would have had somebody other than just my husband, who was my rock and my stronghold, but he took it hard, right? Because he had to be strong for me. So I wish I would have had somebody else in my corner, and I wish I would have had Excelstra, but kind of like you, I didn't. So we're here to make sure other people don't suffer the same way that we did.
So moving to the next, I call this the client transformation process, because, let's say that somebody works with you. There's another client of mine that used the quarterback analogy, that they're that centerpiece, like, because you get bombarded with, the estate people, the will people, the real estate guys, and where should I put my money, and allocators, et cetera, et cetera. So in your experience working with clients, what is the typical transformation that you see, and how do you guide them from their initial sort of financial state to a point where they're leveraging either their assets or whatever else that they have that they can leverage to be effective?
That's a great question. So typically when clients come in, a big part of what we have to unravel is their situation. And oftentimes they will come in either in a world of pain and mess, or they'll come in a world where they feel like they got it, but they're looking for, what are we missing? And so in order to identify where is the client currently, and how do we deliver that transformation, we need to understand kind of who they are as an individual. How do they see money? This is not about just, let's make sure that we orchestrate the strategies for you and everything will be fine, because the same strategy that might work for two business owners that have identical businesses, the likelihood that the same exact strategy is going to work for both in the exact same way is very unlikely. And so by us taking a step back to understand what is meaningful to the client, what are they trying to achieve, what are they hoping to be in the next 5, 10, 15 years, what are they planning to do with this business, or even with their exit strategy, right, out of, for example, corporate America. When we're able to step back and do that, a beautiful thing unravels. We're able to identify what I call the domino effect. So it's the true quarterback approach, where we make sure that everybody's at the same table. And when I say everybody's at the same table, I'm not just talking about, here are the people that we started working with 3 years ago or 5 years ago, and it's the same players. We're constantly looking out for what is there in the future. And I have specific examples where if we don't do that, then we're going to try to live towards the future with yesterday's strategies. So we're all about what are the fresh strategies that our clients could take advantage of, but more importantly is, what does that domino effect look like? And what are the first 1 or 2 things that need to happen in order for the client's situation to be set in motion? And the thing that we see from a value add on the other side, this is a perfect example. It's one of our clients we've been working with for 3 years. When they first came to us, husband and wife, we started working, we identified the domino effect, we put specific strategies in motion, we worked on their tax strategy side. All of that worked beautifully. Huge savings, huge value add overall. This year, the client came and said, hey, in addition to all of the other things that we're doing, which, by the way, they're invested in all sorts of different things because they enjoy real estate, they enjoy syndicates, they enjoy all, crypto and and then they have the traditional and non-traditional financial things.
Mhm.
They said, we have this additional $50,000, $60,000 to $100,000 that we want deployed towards this particular strategy. Now, because we work together and they know the different options that they have at their disposal, very critical concept. They know exactly where they would want, because they know what we're trying to achieve long term. So because we're in this position that they were not in 3 years ago, now we're in a situation where that money is going to be leveraged, is going to be invested in ways that, frankly, only super, super strategic investors can actually even think that way. We would not have had the opportunity to have those conversations 3 years ago because financially they weren't there, mindset they weren't there, strategy they weren't ready. So now, because we have all of the other pieces in motion, we're able to take the game to a level that, frankly, most people can only dream to achieve in their lifetime. And we were able to achieve that within 3 very short years.
I haven't shared any of my questions with you. We hardly spoke about what we're going to talk about. And you're already leading me to that question, because I do not, and since we met in these masterminds and other ways that we are there for upliftment and personal development, how do you separate personal development and growth from financial? I mean, you've educated people or these clients because they weren't aware of what they were capable of or could be in terms of what they could be doing in just 2-3 years of how they understand the financial world. So how do you marry the two? And are there other examples besides the one you just gave?
There are actually. So the way that we marry the two, I tell everybody that my role, we're not gonna, from a financial perspective, I'm the type of person, we have a methodology, we have an approach. There is a soft side. Most of our clients have become friends. When we travel to each other's locations, we have clients all throughout the United States. We visit on a social note.
Right.
But what I tell them is, listen, we are not going to hold hands and sing kumbaya. I can't ask you what happened to you as a child or how your parents talked to you and hope that I'm going to change from that angle how you see money and what's going to happen in your financial life. What I can tell you is that if we follow the methodology and the approach that we have set out, we will start working at the mindset. We will start working at these things. And then what I do, which my clients just go gaga over, is because I continue to spend money on my personal development, on our business, right? We have consultants that work for our business to help us take it to the next level and add more value to our clients. I'll share insights that I'm learning. Just yesterday, I did it with one of our clients. They're talking about email campaigns. And I said, based on what I'm hearing, here's what one of our consultants told us in terms of considerations. Look at this solution and look at this solution. And if you need more details on the process, we can set up a separate meeting and I'm happy to give you visibility. But that's more on the kind of the professional side. When it comes to the mindset and the support that they might need in terms of the truly softer side, decoupled necessarily or decoupled in an ultimate fashion from finances, that's where I would call Raju to come in and say, can you help me, right? Can you help our client? Let's figure out, how do we embed those strategies? How do we embed that support to make sure that our clients have access to that knowledge to help them go to the next level? And that's worked beautifully for us and for our clients.
Great. So that means you're talking about, and you use the word advanced strategies quite a bit in your conversations with other people. Certainly known for advising on tax strategies, but that's not the only thing. Clearly, I think I understand that. So there are conventional options, but this is the alternative side. So are there any like top 1, 2, or 3 things you would share today you could share with the audience today that, think about these three things or 2 things when it comes to alternatives?
Yes, when we're thinking about not just from an investments perspective, but let's think more comprehensively, right? Whether you're a business owner listening or you're an executive in corporate America and you're looking to leave. Let's say you're an executive, because a lot of the audience you were mentioning is kind of thinking, or they're in the process of leaving. There's this misconception that as a W-2, you can't do much about your taxes.
Correct.
Here's the reality. I thought the same thing.
Is it I?
Part of my... Go ahead.
Yeah, they take my money, they pay the federal, state tax, etc., and I got, something left. And then there's a 401k or something here and there, right?
But you and I both know, Raju, that there are different things that can be done, right?
Totally.
Hindsight being 2020. Goodness gracious. So when you're looking back, here's what I will tell you as part of listening to this conversation, okay? If you're thinking, oh my God, I've been paying so much money in taxes, and I hear Eunicia and Raju telling me that I could have, should have paid less. Yes, you could have and you should have. The challenge is those strategies are not necessarily widely available. So as one of the things that you can do immediately is, if you feel like if you're in that 32 to 35% tax bracket, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, let's jump on a call and figure out what is it that you're trying to achieve, because we can provide you some insights into things that you can do that could save you a lot of money that could go towards your family, money that could go towards your business, money that could go towards more investments, money that you're entitled to hold. But maybe you don't understand that that's even a possibility because no one is talking that way. So the biggest gift that I could give someone is understand what is your marginal tax bracket. And if you're in the 32% or higher, you've got a problem. And it's a problem that's been compounding for you year over year over year. And if you don't put a stop to it, or if you don't alleviate that problem, it's going to probably cost you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars from a year to another.
Well, as I said, when I was an employee, I wish I had met somebody like you, because I'm not thinking about any of this stuff. So well put. I agree. Anyway, we've already talked about that before earlier. Like, oh my God, what were we thinking?
We could go back, right? What would we do if we could go back? A lot of things. But we can look back with regret. So that's part of the mindset. Let's just focus on what we can do going forward.
Exactly. Yeah. So is there anything else that you just described? The one thing that they should do is if they're your target audience is 30 to 35% tax bracket. If they're
32 and above. The other thing that you can do, chances are, if you're looking to make that shift, or if you've already made that shift, there are questions about, what can I do? Which way should I go? What should I invest in? I'll give you an example. We are currently working with a group of dentists that are in the process of basically selling their businesses, and they're going to get a ton of money at the onset, and then they're going to go on a salary, and that salary is not going to be anywhere near what they used to be paid before. Right. And so as you're moving from having that W-2 paycheck and going on your own, there's going to be that shift. As you have questions, you got to get those questions addressed. Right. You must not put them behind. Don't put them, if I put them behind me, I'm just going to forget and not think about them anymore, because here's what happens. They will come back up. And you have two options. You can let them come back up, and you can let them fester in the background, which will create pain. Or you can say, you know what? Lean into that unknown, lean into the vulnerability, ask the questions. And if you've already asked them of your team and they're still there, it just means they haven't been asked. They haven't been answered. And that's okay. Let's get them answered, because once you get them answered, here's what happens. A beautiful world of opportunity would open up, and your questions are no longer going to be the basic in the background, embarrassed to ask, but now you're going to elevate your overall financial platform to a next level. And that's going to open up a beautiful world of opportunities in terms of how you invest your money. What do you do with your money? Should you deplete your 401k? What does that look like? How will you survive? What's the impact on your family? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But leaning into that vulnerability is going probably being one of the hardest things you'll ever do, but one of the most beneficial to your long-term success, regardless of what you're stepping into.
And worst case is you learn something about what's out there for you, right?
Very much so, yes.
Yeah. So switching gears a little bit. So I have a two-part question. It's the same question. You can answer it together, whatever. So since I talk to people who are in the personal leadership game, they are conscious and aware that they're meant for more, let's say, in life. They're just not as bold as they would like to be, because we're all not as bold as we could be. So this podcast is called Bold Conscious Connections. For that reason, everything I do has to do with bold, conscious something. So the book is Bold Conscious Leadership. This podcast is Connections, and so on and so forth. So in the Bold Conscious Connections, when I say that, or bold and conscious leadership, what does bold or conscious or unconscious mean to you?
Bold and conscious to me would be, regardless of where you're at, regardless of how you feel, if you've made the decision that you need to do something, you need to lean into that boldly and conscientiously know that, pardon my expression, but SHIT will probably hit the fan and it's going to get harder before it gets easier. And just 2 days ago, I had another interview where the question came up about new, and the notion of new is scary, and the association between I've got something new and it's hard and it's scary, but we have to get past it.
Right.
And here's what I'll tell you. When it comes to bold consciousness, it's the realization that if you want to step into that higher value that you can deliver and are meant to deliver into this world, you have to be comfortable meeting that uncertainty and meeting that fear with boldness to say, you know what, I might be afraid, but also realize that when that fear creeps in, chances are you're probably on the verge of a big breakthrough.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't lean into the fear and if you're not bold to say, I might be afraid, because we're all afraid of different things, it's not going to happen. And you're going to regress. And then you're going to be like, okay, what was the boldness for? Realize that you should not allow yourself that opportunity to regress, but rather to constantly lean into that unknown.
So good, because that's what keeps us in the same space that we are.
There's always going to be a new. There's always going to be a new.
And all the possibilities are on the other side. So if you don't step into the dark, then there are no possibilities. Everything's lit up and you can see everything. So you also kind of answered, like, what are your 1 or 2 greatest leadership lessons? And in these uncertain times that people live in, and they're in this uncertain mode of jumping to do something because they're just unfulfilled in their current jobs. Like, what is a leader? What advice would you give them to be able to navigate these uncharted territories for them? One I hear is embrace uncertainty with courage and boldness. What would be another one?
Get support. Make sure that you have a team that will be there for you when you hit the rough patches. A big thing, even on the corporate side, that I know a lot of leaders stand behind is this notion of having a mentor. And I know you probably were blessed with amazing mentors. I can tell you that I would have never been able to climb the corporate ladder and get as far as I had gotten if I didn't have amazing mentors in my life.
Absolutely.
It's very much the same on the business side. As a business owner, you may not have the business owner mentors at the onset because you've been in the corporate environment, and your mentors in the corporate world are not going to be able to speak the game of being an entrepreneur and being a business owner. So do realize that at the beginning, you're probably going to have to pay to get that support. It gets easier. After a while, you build friends and you build camaraderie. It's kind of like Raju and I, right? And you can pick up the phone and say, hey, here's something that I just bumped into, or something that our company is dealing with. Do you have any resources that you might recommend? And what you'll find is that after a while of being a business owner or an entrepreneur, you're going to have access to that network in a very different way. But you have to learn in order. Dean Graziosi, and Raju knows this, he says something that constantly rings through my ear. And when I hear people saying, oh, but I can just get it for free. In our case, I can just go to the next investment bank and I'll get it for free. It's like, really? Let's run the numbers to see how much that free is actually costing you. It's the same thing when you're stepping into something new. If you don't have the right support, realizing that you need to pay to go fast. That's what Dean says. You have to, and multiple leaders say, it's the pay to speed. And if you're not willing to do the pay to speed, just realize that the same thing you can accomplish in 1 year, it's probably going to take you something like 10 or 15 years. Hopefully you'll get to the same end result. But if you do embrace the concept of get the support and make sure that you have the right team, when those harder times come, it will be much easier.
Yes, and guys, Eunicia is not trying to be a salesperson. She is really coming from the heart, because if you don't serve with the heart, you sell with the heart too, because selling is actually serving, right? And then yes, in the long run, when money's not that important, you get it for free anyway, or when you even give money, it feels like it's no big deal. Sure, yeah, no problem, because it's that freedom.
Here's something that I'll say, Raju, that was really relevant for me. And every time I think about it, it almost brings me to tears, because you're right. God, Lord knows I am not a salesperson. I don't like to sell, right? To me, it's like, this is the value that we can deliver. And which is why, as you've heard me, right? Could I help individuals that are looking to transition on the psychology or on the softer side? Yes. I mean, I've been there, but is that my unique area of expertise? No. However, something that was really relevant to me early on from a mindset standpoint is when you're in the corporate world, everything is a we. You are part of a we culture, right?
Yeah.
You go to conferences, you go to meetings, you go to, executive luncheons, executive readouts, board meetings, etc. It's all about the we. And something that I realized when I became an entrepreneur in the early days was that it's not a we, it's a I. I got this.
Yep.
I got this. And that is a big hurdle to overcome, to give yourself the permission to realize that even in a we world, it always was, you got this.
Mm-hmm.
You just had to fit in a specific infrastructure, a specific network. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how you can grow and be the
And
best
that's
that
how
you
you
can be in.
succeeded, right? Because
Exactly.
Yes.
But as you move in your entrepreneurship journey or your business ownership journey, it becomes you got what it takes to make it big.
Yep.
You just need the support, a very similar level of support that you had in the corporate world, but now
Right.
it's you're driving the ship.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then you can get paid for your wisdom that your job will never pay you because you've acquired this wisdom over the 10, 20, 30 years. So yes.
Correct.
Awesome. All right. So we have just a little bit time. Are you ready for some rapid fire?
Let's do the rapid fire.
All right. I will limit it to just 5 or 6 questions. Okay. Number 1, an entrepreneur you admire.
I mean, among others, my ultimate entrepreneur I admire is my husband. The ultimate, that's like the closest to me, but he's not a big brand name that anybody would recognize, and that's okay. But he's ultimately, huge source of inspiration for me.
Okay, a book that has changed your perspective. Doesn't have to be today. It can be anytime.
You're a badass at making money. I know, especially if you're still in corporate America, you're like, what kind of a book is that?
What is that again?
You are a badass at making money.
You are a badass at making money. All right, I'm going to put that on my list.
It's an easy, fun read, but it really opens up just your perspective to so many different things that you should have thought about.
Okay, number 3, an idea worth spreading.
You are worth it. You individually are worth it, and you deserve better. You deserve to know what else is there that you're missing out on in whatever area of life that you need to focus on.
Okay. The first thing to do after deciding to become an entrepreneur.
Have a plan. Have a plan.
Okay. The most underrated skill in leadership.
Humbleness.
Yay, that would be my answer too. Humility. Oh my God, so good. All right. Well, I'm going to just stop there. I think we could go on. I can literally.
Did I pass the test?
There's no test.
The test.
It's up to the audience to tell you that.
There you go.
I think you passed my test. An idea worth spreading came to me because I think it was TED Talks. It was an idea worth spreading or something like that. So it was like, ideas worth spreading. It's like, okay, that's a good rapid fire question I should ask. Well, listen, Indeed. I take nothing for granted. I always enjoy our interactions, even though they've been very, very few lately. And hopefully we change that going forward. So I'm sure that my audience doesn't take any of this for granted for the time you spent here with us. So we really appreciate your presence here.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Creative processes, we create and we share and we all grow from that. So in that context, Eunicia, what discoveries have you had in this conversation today?
This was a blessing for me because it kind of this conversation brought me back, years back, right, to when I was making the decision to leave corporate America. And like I said, I left without a parachute. Maybe I thought I had a plan, but certainly I didn't. And it just brought the awareness. It also brought so many questions that I had from partners, for example, in the Big Four subsequently, to say, hey, historically, we could only do this with our investments. We know that there's a pension, but what if? And so it just really, it warmed my heart to know not only how far somebody can go, But the fact that if you're listening to this, just consider it a blessing that you have somebody in your ear, maybe before or even after you've made the decision, to know that there's something better. And there are corporate executives that have made it big, and that they can provide support. Lean on them, lean on their mistakes. We wish we would have had them right in our corner before, and we found our own mentors. But yes, very powerful.
Well, again, that's awesome. Is there anything in closing you'd like to say besides that? Is there anything you are giving away? Is there some other things they could find in the show notes that you're, and of course, I'll put the notes where they can find you. On
of course, you can always find us on www.excelstra.com. That's excelstra.com, or you can also look us up on podcast.excelstra.com. You'll find some additional resources there. My guidance would be just if you're here, if you're listening, if you're in Raju's area of influence, just schedule a call, and it would be my pleasure to help out in any way that we can.
Great. Well, in closing, once again, thank you, Eunicia, and I hope we continue to build on these conversations for the future.
We will. Looking forward to it.
Take good care. Bye-bye.